AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Alldus podcast. I'm your host, Ben Sparks, and we are continuing with our ServiceNow series. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to Mark Scott. Mark currently works for ServiceNow and holds the position of Senior Platform Architect. He's been in the ServiceNow ecosystem now for about 4.5 years and started his journey with TB Consulting. Mark is passionate about all integrations within ServiceNow, the ServiceNow platform. Is probably best known for his contributions on Twitter and LinkedIn, so make sure you follow him after this podcast. And in his free time, he is an amateur barbecue pitmaster and likes to research and visit amusement parks. Today, Mark will be talking to us about his career and the journey he's been in within ServiceNow, some top tips from an implementer's perspective, integrations, and he's very passionate about that, by the way, flow designer specifically, and he's also going to tell us about an exciting new venture he's embarked upon, but I'll save that towards the end of the show. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
So Mark, tell our listeners a little bit more about the person they're listening to today.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a Phoenix, Arizona native. I've always had a huge passion for IT, and I love making ServiceNow content and building on the platform. I do have some of the hobbies you mentioned, but on any given weekend, I'm probably building some insane integration use case into ServiceNow because that's what I honestly like to do.
Nice. And when we first spoke, you gave us a really nice overview of your career, and I remember you had quite an early interest in programming. Can you give us a quick overview there?
Yeah, so I think I was 12 or 13 when I picked up my first development book. My dad was a software engineer for Intel and really helped build that passion in me. The other side of the story was that I really wanted to make Clippy, the little animated assistant inside of Office applications, curse and show all my friends. So I read all these books and taught myself Visual Basic for applications, and I just never looked back.
Nice. So when we look at ServiceNow specifically, so everyone has a different story. What first attracted you to the platform, and kind of how did you land at ServiceNow where you work directly?
It's funny, and I really never chose ServiceNow. It just kind of found me. I was working as a consultant with TB Consulting, and I was the only developer doing custom application development. The rest of the company focused on network, virtualization, and data center implementations. With that, we needed a ticketing solution, and someone settled on ServiceNow and asked if I'd be interested in taking a look because I had already had extensive JavaScript experience. I think about 3 or 4 months later, I submitted my first speaker submission for Knowledge and got accepted. From there, I really fell in love with the ecosystem. There are so many people making awesome content and supporting each other. It's just really fun to be a part of. Coming to ServiceNow was another chance encounter. What I've gathered from the Now Learning team had been looking for a platform architect for some time, and somebody name dropped me to an internal recruiter. I'd always wanted to join ServiceNow as developer advocate and run around with Chuck Tomasi once my kids had grown up, but for someone like me to get tapped on the shoulder to build out Now Learning, it's still surreal and like a borderline religious experience for me. I'm a ServiceNow fanboy, so this is like getting a tour of the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Sounds amazing. I bet it was a fun first day when you walked in there. Must have been a bit of a surreal feeling. I can imagine. So look, many of our listeners are embarking on implementations, be that kind of complete digital transformation overhauls or enhancing their ServiceNow instance. What was the advice that you would offer to executives or business-based stakeholders kind of embarking on these new journeys in their business?
Yeah, I mean, I really have two kind of philosophies on this, right? When you're first starting off with a brand new instance of ServiceNow, you really need to remember the platform can do anything you want it to do. It really is just a database, a front end, and some basic logic in between. But should it be doing that? I could probably build a car wash and run a car wash off of a ServiceNow instance, but is that really what it should be doing? Separation of concerns, right? If I'm going to build a giant accounting package, that's probably not something I should build into ServiceNow. But if I want to change the way I'm implementing my IT practices, well, obviously that's an application that coexists with ServiceNow very nicely. So finding that line of demarcation is very important. From an enterprise standpoint, the next thing you really want to look at is do you make your processes fit the tool, or do you retool the platform to fit your processes? There's no real wrong answers here, but when you're doing upgrades and maintenance on the platform, you have to keep in mind that you've made a lot of customizations. Or are you going to take everything that your business does from a day-to-day basis and change that and conform to what ServiceNow does out of the box? Again, no real wrong answer. It's just what technical debt are you willing to take on, or what process debt are you willing to take on now?
Gotcha. No, it makes complete sense. And obviously, you've been on the front line. What sort of words of wisdom do you have for any technical architect folks out there that are sort of in these implementation worlds?
I'm a big proponent of what we like to call separation of concerns. So really, it's just a fancy way of saying put each part of an application into a box in your mind, and make sure that every part of that application fits in the box. So all the integrations, all the code, workflows, or actions, things that you're going to be building into this application need to fit within that box. You put the top on the box, and everything fits in. This is where we start to talk about things like microservices, right? Microservices are one box. And we need to start thinking about scoped applications like microservices. They need to be single, clear, and immutable. They have a defined purpose, and then we can build on top of that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And let's talk about integrations.
Oh, integrations are my jam.
That's good to know. So let's start from the ground. What is an integration? I'm sure that is a ridiculous question.
That's such a great question.
Thanks.
I think technical definition would be allowing one piece of software to talk to another piece of software. But really, when we're talking about ServiceNow, we're usually thinking about an API, but there's a couple of different methods as well.
Nice. So why are you so passionate about integrations?
I get the same feeling connecting two systems together that I did the first day on the internet. You're talking about teaching two computers to talk to each other. Plus, you get to make these horrible Frankenstein monsters of things nobody has ever thought of. I've built integrations that read the tail numbers of aircraft that fly over my house, and machine learning integration to classify an image as a hot dog or not. And I'm currently writing a home automation bot that integrates with Telegram, and I've done it all on ServiceNow. That's an incredibly powerful and versatile tool.
So Mark, obviously integrations are your jam. So, why are they key in ServiceNow, in the ServiceNow platform, and why is it key for the future of ServiceNow?
I mean, really, when you look at integrations, it's a separation of concerns, right? ServiceNow is an awesome product. It's a great platform, and it has a pretty generalized use, but what it's not great at is all the other things that it's not great at, right? It's not a financial piece of software. It's not a financial platform for tracking bank accounts, for example. Let's just go with that example. So I wouldn't want to build a financial application inside of ServiceNow necessarily. I'd want to go find a purpose-built application that does that. That being said, there are some things that I may want to touch on between my ServiceNow application and my financial application that I need to send some data back and forth. So let's say an account was closed out or something like that. Well, that would be helpful to know in ServiceNow. So we need to have these bidirectional integrations that talk to other systems that are just better at doing the job that maybe ServiceNow doesn't have to do or really even need to do.
Awesome. That makes complete sense. And have you got any exciting integrations that you've worked on while you're at ServiceNow?
That's such a loaded question. Internally, we're so integrated. Even between multiple instances of ServiceNow, we build integrations to kind of move data around, which is really cool because the nature of ServiceNow of being kind of an integration platform, it makes it pretty easy to do. But from a specific standpoint, I'm on the Now Learning team. We're doing a ton of integrations right now with some learning systems specifically, and everybody listening that is a ServiceNow certified individual will be familiar with Web Assessor and Criterion. So we do a lot of our work through there, and a lot of that process is very automated. So we set you up for on-demand classes or the instructor-led trainings. All of that's done through Criterion, and we have that very close sync between Now Learning and Criterion. We also have a integration with a product called Rustici, which hosts all of our learning content, which we have a bidirectionality on, which is kind of interesting because our users are very used to using ServiceNow and not necessarily Rustici. So we actually have a bidirectional sync where they upload a zip file and that gets uploaded into Rustici. Rustici downloads and processes that, and then it pushes it back into Now Learning, which is really, really cool. But from a cool factor, I would say, there are a couple of really interesting machine learning algorithms that the team has built out. So we've integrated with HANA and a couple of other large data warehousing platforms, things like that. And I really think it's interesting to see the data that comes out of those things, and it's really fun because it's another team that's building a bunch of machine learning algorithms that I'm not a data scientist, right? So being able to pull all of that out, analyze the AI, use the AI to analyze all the data, and then be able to digest that into Now Learning or any of our other properties is really, really powerful.
And I know you're passionate specifically about Flow Designer. I'm personally not technical, so could you give me an overview of the value that brings and maybe dig in a little deeper for our technical listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it's software development Legos. Seriously, it's drag and drop interface that allows you to build just incredibly powerful workflows without having to be technical. And that's really the value that anyone should see in this. Scripts and command line are great, but it's not going to enable someone like yourself who doesn't identify as super technical deliver anything for the enterprise from a software development standpoint. Flow Designer allows anyone to come in and build and maintain logic without needing to know JavaScript or scripting or have that programming experience. That may scare some developers, but we've all got that daemon code that just never goes away. So something that's always getting tweaked or fixed, or the requirements change. Imagine being able to hand off these annoying tasks to a junior developer, an admin, or even a BSA to handle. You could work on the stuff that you want to that isn't as tedious, and when they hit a roadblock, you could get to come in and be the rock star who helped them. At the C level, imagine empowering your employees to build new apps and no new development experience. The citizen developer is going to be the next big trend in IT, I think.
Nice, that's great to know. And so who should be looking into Flow Designer? And you mentioned a few above there, but who would see the most value from it?
I mean, it's really about bringing your ServiceNow instance to the next level. We don't need to necessarily write code anymore to get things done. If you're looking to reduce your time to implement new things on the platform, Flow Designer removes the tedious debugging of scripts. You're looking to empower the enterprise to make their own apps without involving a developer. Flow Designer is the first step. I honestly think that everyone should be looking at Flow Designer and finding out how they can weave that into their enterprise applications on ServiceNow.
Nice. So, obviously, look, you've got an experience in the ServiceNow world and outside the ServiceNow world. You mentioned machine learning earlier and a few other areas. As the product and platform becomes more complex, and I'm probably thinking more from an AI perspective here on machine learning, what's on the horizon for the platform, in your opinion?
I think natural language processing, or really the understanding, I as a human say, I want to see the last 4 tickets that were categorized as a P1, and having a computer understand that and be able to build that report and send it out, right? And it goes beyond reporting. It could literally be any query within the either ServiceNow or any system, really. It's going to be so important, again, as we couple things like Flow Designer to enabling citizen developers. We need to be able to also allow them to digest large amounts of data. I see natural language processing being the obvious next step for that. If I can just write it in plain English, that's a lot easier than having to build a report from scratch. Really, there's always the the focus that will reduce incidents or be able to predict when we're going to have outages and things like that. I think that's definitely going to have a huge impact on where the platform is going. But I think that we're going to evolve beyond just the basics of that machine learning and those AI algorithms, and we're going to see some really cool stuff come out. Image processing would be cool to see. I don't know that anybody's actively working on that, but being able to say, hey, there were, I submitted a ticket and here's a screenshot of what was happening, maybe being able to digest that information and put it in the ticket, that'd be really cool to see, and be very valuable, I think.
Nice. There's some great things there, and as you know, we have a large listener base in the AI world, so I know that there's a lot of people with their eyes on ServiceNow and how that product's evolving. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
So cool. So Mark, I know you've just launched a podcast yourself. Let's talk to me a bit about that and what compelled you to give that a crack.
So Andrew Albrecht and some other folks and I had always talked about recording our nerdy conversations and releasing them. We'd never produced a podcast. It sounded like a fun challenge, but everyone was really producing like really serious content, us included, and putting it out into the ecosystem. And we just decided that we wanted to do something that was a little bit more fun, that we could have some fun with, as almost more like a hobby.
Brilliant stuff, and I can imagine it's really engaging as well. So talk about the name Between Two Functions. Where did that come from?
I have to give all credit to Andrew for coming up with that name. We're both pretty silly and easygoing, so we took Between Two Functions as an homage to a show a famous comedian does.
Nice. And what can people expect from the first episode that's, I believe, just been released, right?
And I think we're going to be, we zero index our episodes, so we started at 0, and I was the first. But as for what to expect, I'd say weird questions. We love weird questions. We've got a huge spreadsheet full of random questions that I'm just dying to ask people, engage their reactions. And I mean, honestly, I'm still shocked that these people let us interview them, but they're always great to have on. And I'm also going to try my hand at hosting a few episodes as well.
Nice, excellent. Well, look, Mark, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. You've definitely given our listeners some technical thoughts here, and it's been great to get to know you. We'll obviously make sure that we check out Between Two Functions, and we recommend all of our listeners do as well. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ben.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.